My name is Harper Quinn, and the night my life fractured was meant to be the night it finally ignited. I was 36, lying in a premium recovery suite at Rush University Medical Center in Chicago. Rain slammed against the tinted windows like fists. The only other sounds were the quiet puff of my oxygen mask, the rhythmic beep of the cardiac monitor, and the low hum of the city far below. Both legs were destroyed. The right femur had shattered into 3 major fragments, the left knee was a pulverized joint with torn ligaments and a fractured tibial plateau. The chief orthopedic surgeon had been brutally honest that morning: without immediate, high-end reconstructive surgery, custom titanium implants, vascularized bone grafts, nerve decompression, I would spend the rest of my life dependent on crutches, a walker, or worse. Pain would become my constant shadow. I can still feel the exact peak of joy, 6 hours before impact. I had just stepped out of the private conference room at Caldwell and Thorne on North Michigan Avenue. Mr. Caldwell, 94 and fading from advanced lymphoma, had requested one final visit. I assumed it was to sign off on the last tranche of his estate archive: illuminated manuscripts, vintage Cartier pieces, a hidden vault of mid-century American photography he'd never shown the public. Instead, he'd handed me a single obsidian envelope sealed with red wax. "Harper," he'd said, voice like dry leaves, eyes suddenly clear, "you showed up every single week for 9 years. You never once asked for anything. You listened. You stayed. This belongs to you now. All of it. Don't let vultures near it." Inside was the final codicil. 91 million in diversified holdings, cash equivalents, index funds, private equity stakes, plus controlling ownership of Caldwell Global Partners, a low-profile powerhouse that owned Class A office towers across 8 U.S. cities, a portfolio of luxury boutique hotels in resort destinations, and 100% of Étoile Noire, the elite Parisian couture house whispered about in fashion circles the way old money whispers about trust funds. I'd been speeding home to tell Julian, my husband of 9 years, that the grind was over. No more watching him obsess over the next commercial lease while our joint account hovered dangerously close to red. No more delaying starting a family until the next commission hits. We could finally live. Then the box truck jackknifed it across 3 lanes of the Dan Ryan Expressway in a blinding sheet of rain. I woke 31 hours later to the sharp smell of disinfectant, the metallic tang of dried blood, and my husband standing at the foot of the bed with another woman's hand locked in his. Julian looked pristine, deep charcoal Zegna suit, understated Patek Philippe, hair still perfect despite the storm outside. The woman beside him was 29, raven hair in loose waves, lips the exact shade of revenge red that looks expensive in every lighting. Her name was Tatum. I'd seen her content before. She called herself a luxury lifestyle curator and impact investor. Julian didn't reach for me. He didn't ask about the pain. "You're conscious," he said, voice flat and professional. "We need to cover logistics." My throat felt like gravel. "Julian, what happened?" "You wrote off the Mercedes," he answered, as if I'd scratched the paint. "Policy is denying coverage." "You were texting. Or distracted. The police report isn't favorable." I tried to lift my head. Fire exploded through my hips. The truck crossed into my lane. I had no chance. "Spare me," he cut in. "I already met with risk management. You're personally liable for the first 240 in medicals, and that's before inpatient rehab." Tatum gave a small, theatrical sigh. "It's honestly tragic, babe. She looks so fragile right now." Julian brushed his thumb over her knuckles. "She'll adapt. She always manages." Then he opened his slim leather folio and placed a thick sheaf of documents across the blanket covering my braced, elevated legs. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Affidavit of asset segregation. Immediate separation agreement. I stared until the print blurred. "You're divorcing me," I rasped. "In a hospital bed?" He glanced at his phone. "I have a board call in 35. Sign before you're discharged. It streamlines the process." Tatum leaned in, voice honeyed. "No drama, Harper. Julian's just safeguarding his path forward. You get it, don't you?" I looked at the man I'd married at 27, the one who once drove 3 hours in a snowstorm to bring me soup when I had the flu. I didn't recognize him. And he had zero idea that 6 hours before the crash, I'd become one of the richest private citizens in the Midwest. He had no clue the avalanche he'd just triggered. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like angry insects. I couldn't move my legs, they were suspended in traction, heavy casts like concrete boots, but my mind was racing. piecing together fragments. Julian reached for the divorce papers, flipping to the signature page with the casual efficiency of someone closing a minor deal. I've already moved the joint checking and savings, he said, not looking at me. Everything liquid is now in my operating account for the firm. The house is listed, closing in 30 days. You'll get your personal belongings once you're discharged. Tatum scrolled her phone, half listening, half liking comments on her latest post, a carousel of her in a cream cashmere coat outside a downtown cafe, captioned "Grateful for new chapter sparkles #blessed #next level." I forced words through cracked lips. Julian, we built that house together. Every weekend we painted, every late night we planned the nursery. He cut me off with a short, humorless laugh. We built nothing. I built. You organized dusty books for rich old men. Be realistic, Harper. You're looking at permanent disability. I can't carry dead weight while my career is finally accelerating. Tatum understands momentum. Tatum glanced up, offering a sympathetic head tilt that didn't reach her eyes. It's not personal, babe. It's just optics. Julian's pitching to high-net-worth clients now. They expect a certain image. A partner who can host dinners, travel first class, look the part. She gestured vaguely at my hospital gown, the 4 lines, the urine bag hanging discreetly below the bed rail. This isn't that. Julian nodded like she'd recited gospel. Exactly. And speaking of optics, he pulled out his phone, tapped the screen, and turned it toward me. A real estate listing. Our Lincoln Park brownstone, 3 bedrooms, original oak floors, the rooftop deck we'd planted herbs on, now staged with minimalist white furniture and priced at $3.2 million. Photos showed fresh flowers, fresh linens, fresh everything. No trace of us. I already accepted an all-cash offer, he said. Funds wire tomorrow. After commissions and paying off the mortgage, there's a nice cushion for the new condo Tatum and I are looking at in the Gold Coast. My chest tightened so hard I thought the monitor would alarm. You sold our home. Without telling me. You were in surgery, he replied, shrugging. Time-sensitive market. You'd have agreed if you were thinking clearly. Tatum giggled softly, still scrolling. The master bath has the most insane soaking tub. Heated floors. I'm obsessed already. Julian pocketed the phone. Look, sign the papers. I'll make sure the hospital discharge goes smoothly, maybe arrange a short-term rehab facility. After that, we're done. He leaned in then, close enough I could smell his cologne mixed with Tatum's vanilla perfume. His voice dropped to something almost gentle. You're a good person, Harper. You'll land on your feet. Just not on mine anymore. The door swung open. A nurse entered with a clipboard, eyes flicking between us, sensing the tension. Julian straightened, all business again. I'll have my attorney overnight the executed copies, he said, already turning toward the exit. Tatum linked her arm through his. Feel better soon, she called over her shoulder, sweet as artificial sweetener. The door clicked shut. Silence settled, thick and suffocating. I stared at the ceiling tiles, counting them one by one until the numbers blurred. My pulse hammered in my ears. Julian thought he'd stripped me bare, health, home, future, dignity. He had no idea I was now the majority owner of a $91 million empire. He had no idea I'd just inherited the keys to the very fashion house Tatum worshipped in every sponsored post. And he had no idea that the woman he'd just discarded was about to become the architect of his complete, irreversible ruin. I closed my eyes. For the first time since waking up, the pain in my legs felt distant. What burned hottest was something colder, sharper, deeper. Resolve. The door had barely latched behind Julian and Tatum when the room felt smaller, colder. I lay there counting my breaths until the monitor's rhythm steadied. My hands, still trembling from shock, curled into fists around the thin hospital blanket. The divorce papers sat untouched on the tray table like a loaded gun. I didn't cry. Tears would have been a waste of hydration, and Mr. Caldwell had always said waste was the only true sin. Instead, I reached for the bedside phone with shaking fingers. The 4-line tugged at the back of my hand, but I ignored it. I dialed the only number I'd memorized from 9 years of quiet Thursday visits, the private line of Caldwell Global's executive counsel, a man named Victor Lang who answered on the second ring. Lang speaking. This is Harper Quinn, I whispered, throat raw. Mr. Caldwell's beneficiary. I need help. Now. A brief silence. Then his voice shifted, professional, calm, almost warm. Ms. Quinn. We've been trying to reach you since yesterday afternoon. Your phone was offline after the accident. Are you safe? No, I said simply. I'm in room 1408 at Rush. They're discharging me soon. No insurance coverage, no money, no legs that work. My husband just served me divorce papers and cleaned out every joint account. Another pause. Understood. Do not sign anything. Do not leave the room. We have your location pinged. A team is en route, ETA 23 minutes. Black Escalade, Caldwell plates. Driver will identify himself as Rourke. Stay put. I exhaled, the first real breath since waking. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Lang replied. You're walking into a very different life. Mr. Caldwell left explicit instructions. Discretion for the first 6 months. No contact with your former circle. Full anonymity while you heal and train. He wanted you rebuilt, physically, financially, mentally, before anyone knows you exist again. 6 months. 6 months of letting Julian and Tatum believe they'd won. 6 months of letting them spend money they didn't truly have, dig holes they couldn't climb out of. It wasn't a punishment. It was strategy. Understood, I said. Good. One more thing. The codicil names you successor trustee and chairwoman pro tem of Caldwell Global Partners. That includes full operational control of Étoile Noire. Tatum Wells has been aggressively pursuing an ambassador contract with them for the last 18 months. She's been posting teasers, tagging the atelier, begging for a meeting. She thinks it's her golden ticket. A slow, cold smile tugged at my cracked lips, the first since the crash. She's about to get one, I murmured. Lang's voice held the faintest trace of amusement. We'll discuss execution when you're secure. For now, rest. Help is coming. I hung up and let my head fall back against the pillow. Outside, the rain had eased to a steady drizzle. I stared at the ceiling and visualized Julian's face when he realized the truth. The woman he'd called dead weight now owned the empire he'd killed to touch. The pain in my legs throbbed in time with my heartbeat. But the fire in my chest burned brighter. I closed my eyes and pictured the moment I'd walk, really walk, back into their world. Not as Harper Quinn, the discarded wife. As Harper Caldwell. The woman who owned everything they coveted. And the woman who would take it all away. 22 minutes later, a soft knock. Ms. Quinn? It's Rourke. Caldwell sent me. I opened my eyes. The game had just begun. The black Escalade didn't pull up to the main entrance. It glided into the underground staff loading dock at Rush, lights off, engine barely a whisper. Rourke, a former Marine, 6'4", shoulders like a linebacker, opened the rear door himself. No clipboard, no paperwork. Just a nod of respect and a folded wool blanket. Ms. Quinn, he said quietly. Let's get you out of here. 2 discreet orderlies, paid by Caldwell Global, transferred me from the hospital gurney to a custom medical transport stretcher without a single question. They knew better. Within minutes I was in the back of the Escalade, reclined, legs elevated, fur still dripping. The tinted windows sealed out the city lights. Rourke drove north, away from the lake, away from everything I'd ever known. We didn't speak for the first hour. I watched Chicago shrink in the side mirror until it was just pinpricks of light. Then the skyline gave way to dark highway, then rolling countryside, then dense pine forest. 3 hours later we passed through wrought iron gates marked only with a small brass plaque, Caldwell Retreat, Private. The facility looked more like a luxury mountain lodge than a medical center, cedar beams, floor-to-ceiling stone fireplaces, private wings hidden behind evergreens. But the staff waiting at the entrance wore scrubs from Swiss orthopedic clinics, not standard hospital issue. The lead surgeon, Dr. Elena Voss, imported from Zurich, met me at the door. She examined the cheap plaster cast Julian had approved without a second opinion. Her lip curled. Primitive, she muttered in accented English. Another week and you'd have permanent nerve damage. We're removing these tonight. Full reconstruction tomorrow, custom titanium alloy rods, platelet-rich plasma grafts, nerve conduits. You'll walk again, properly. In 6 months you'll run if you want to. I met her eyes. I want to walk in heels. At a gala. And I want to do it without anyone knowing who I am until I'm ready. She smiled, small, sharp, approving. Then we begin. The next 6 months were not recovery. They were war. Every morning at 5 a.m., 2 physical therapists dragged me out of bed. Hydrotherapy pools, anti-gravity treadmills, electrical muscle stimulation that felt like lightning under my skin. I screamed the first month. I cursed the second. By the third I welcomed the pain because it meant progress. The wheelchair became parallel bars. Parallel bars became forearm crutches. Crutches became a single carbon fiber cane. And finally, on month 5, the cane stayed in the corner while I walked unassisted across the gym floor in bare feet, then sneakers, then the first pair of 4-inch Louboutins they'd had custom delivered from Paris. Victor Lang visited every 2 weeks with updates. Julian and Tatum were burning through cash at a terrifying rate. The house sold for slightly under asking. Julian panicked and accepted the first decent offer. They bought a $4.8 million condo in Streeterville with a jumbo mortgage Julian barely qualified for. Tatum's content empire was faltering, sponsorships dried up after a few clumsy posts about leaving toxicity behind. She doubled down on chasing Étoile Noire, emailing their PR team weekly, posting tagged stories begging for a collab. She had no idea the atelier now answered to me. Lang slid a slim folder across the table one rainy afternoon. She just signed the ambassador contract, morality clause, $12 million liquidated damages for breach. She didn't read past the signature line. I traced the signature with my finger. Tatum's loopy, eager scrawl. Perfect, I said. Outside my window, snow dusted the pines. My legs, scarred but strong, carried me to the glass. I stood without holding on. 6 months of silence. 6 months of letting them believe I was gone, broken, forgotten. Now the silence was over. It was time to come home. The Caldwell Global Tower dominated the Chicago skyline like a black glass monolith. On the 78th floor, my new office smelled of fresh leather, aged oak, and the faint citrus of floor polish. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city that had once chewed me up and spat me out. Now I looked down on it from above, literally and forever. I stood in front of the full-length mirror beside the desk. The woman staring back wore a midnight velvet gown by Étoile Noire, simple lines, razor-sharp tailoring, a diamond choker that caught every light like frozen stars. My hair, once long and forgettable, was now a sleek, asymmetrical bob that framed my face like a blade. Scars on my legs were hidden beneath silk, but I felt them with every step. They were proof I had survived. They were weapons I had forged. Victor Lang waited by the door, tablet in hand. Everything is in place, chairwoman. The gala begins in 90 minutes. Julian and Tatum arrived 20 minutes ago. They're already circulating, desperate. I nodded. The video? Queued unlocked. The morality clause violation triggered automatic breach notification to Tatum's inbox at 7:02 p.m. She hasn't opened it yet. She's too busy posing. Good. I smoothed the velvet over my hip. Let them shine a little longer. The fall hurts more from the top. The Plaza Chicago ballroom glittered under a constellation of crystal chandeliers. 500 of the city's elite, CEOs, venture capitalists, old money heirs, mingled in a sea of tuxedos and couture. Champagne flowed. Orchestral strings drifted. Power hummed beneath every polite smile. Julian and Tatum entered like they owned the room. He wore a custom tux that strained slightly at the shoulders, evidence of stress eating and skipped gym sessions. She shimmered in a silver sequined gown that cost more than their last mortgage payment. The tag still bore the Étoile Noire Atelier label. They posed for the red carpet photographers, her hand on his arm, his smile practiced and predatory. A society reporter thrust a mic forward. Mr. Whitaker, Ms. Wells, rumors say your ex-wife suffered a tragic accident last year. Any comment on her whereabouts? Tatum leaned in, voice dripping honeyed concern. It's so sad. Harper struggled with stability for a long time. The crash was heartbreaking, but we've done what we can, sent support, checked in. We just want her to find peace away from all this pressure. Julian nodded solemnly. Exactly. Some people aren't built for this world. We pray for her recovery. The reporter's eyes narrowed, sensing blood. They moved on, already typing notes. At their assigned table, number 47, tucked against the service doors near the kitchen, Tatum's smile faltered. This can't be right, she hissed. I'm supposed to be near the stage. I'm the face of Étoile Noire. Julian tugged her down. Keep it together. We're here for networking. One good handshake tonight and we're out of the hole. They didn't know the room was already watching them. They didn't know every server, every security guard, every lighting tech had been briefed. The lights dimmed. A hush fell. The massive LED screen above the stage flickered to life. Soft piano music played, then warped into static. The charity reel dissolved into vertical smartphone footage. Tatum's face filled the screen. Hospital room. Sunglasses indoors. Her voice, amplified through stadium-grade speakers, sliced the silence. "Hey besties, quick little update from the hospital. We're here supporting Julian's ex-wife after her accident. Look at her, honestly, it's giving roadkill vibes." The camera panned. There I was, bruised, bandaged, helpless in the bed. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Tatum's recorded laugh echoed. Oops, my hand slipped. Scalding tea splashed across my cast. My strangled cry played in crystal clarity. The video froze on Julian kissing Tatum over my hospital bed while I begged for help. Dead silence. Every head turned toward table 47. Tatum's champagne flute slipped. It shattered on the floor. Her face drained to ash. Julian's mouth worked soundlessly. That's edited. Deep fake. Someone. The screen changed. A spreadsheet appeared, Julian's debts mapped in red. Mortgages. Credit lines. Hard money loans. All acquired through a shell company, Nemesis Partners, controlled by Caldwell Global. My voice, calm, amplified, filled the room. Good evening, everyone. The spotlight hit the marble staircase. I descended slowly. Heels clicking. No limp. No cane. Just power in every measured step. Recognition hit Julian like a physical blow. He staggered back against the wall. No. No, no, no. Tatum stared at the Étoile Noire choker around my neck, the centerpiece of the campaign she'd begged to front. I reached the podium. Locked eyes with them across the sea of stunned faces. Some of you may remember me as Harper Quinn, the archivist who listened to an old man no one else bothered with. Tonight I stand before you as Harper Caldwell, chairwoman and majority owner of Caldwell Global Partners. Murmurs erupted. I continued, voice steady. Mr. Caldwell left me everything because I showed him basic human decency. In return, I've spent the last 6 months removing parasites from his legacy, and from my own life. I gestured to the screen. Tatum Wells, you signed a contract with Étoile Noire 2 weeks ago. You agreed to a morality clause and $12 million in liquidated damages for conduct that brings disrepute to the brand. Mocking a disabled woman on camera, while wearing our jewelry, qualifies. Tatum collapsed into her chair, hands clawing at her gown. This isn't real. You can't. I already have, I said. Your contract is terminated. The penalty is due immediately. My legal team will be in touch tomorrow. I turned to Julian. And you, Julian Whitaker. You thought you stole everything, our home, our savings, my future. You forged documents, hid assets, lied to insurers. You even tried to force me to take the fall for your tax evasion. The screen shifted again, audio from our diner meeting played. Julian's voice, clear and arrogant. I signed your name better than you ever did. The IRS won't know the difference. FBI agents and Navy windbreakers moved from the shadows. Handcuffs clicked. Julian Whitaker, the lead agent announced, you're under arrest for wire fraud, identity theft, tax evasion, and attempted coercion. Julian thrashed. She set me up. She's lying. Arrest her. Tatum lunged at him, nails raking. You promised me everything. You ruined me. Security separated them. The crowd watched in horrified silence as the once perfect couple was dragged toward the exits, her gown tearing, his tux rumpled, dignity in shreds. I waited until the doors closed behind them. Then I addressed the room one last time. Tonight isn't about revenge. It's about consequences. True power doesn't shout. It waits. It plans. It strikes only when the moment is perfect. I stepped away from the podium. Applause started, slow, then thunderous. I didn't smile. I simply walked off stage, heels echoing like a countdown that had finally reached 0. 3 months later. I stood at the edge of Lake Michigan at dawn. Wind off the water carried the scent of winter. In my hand was my old wedding band, thin gold, scratched from years of ordinary life. I opened my palm. The ring glinted once in the rising sun, then dropped into the dark water. It vanished without a ripple. Behind me, the city woke up. My city now. I turned and walked back to the waiting car, strong, unassisted, unbreakable. Julian was in county lockup, fighting extradition on federal charges. Tatum scrubbed floors at a budget gym in Wicker Park, her socials deleted, her debt a lifetime sentence. I didn't check on them anymore. I didn't need to. The past was at the bottom of the lake. The future was mine to write. And I held the pen. Fade out.